إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله الله تعالى بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا فصلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن استنى بسنته واهتدى بهديه إلى يوم الدين يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل بدعة ضلالة. My dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, I begin as always by humbly requesting that you move forward, sit close together, and fill any gaps in front of you, thereby making room for your brothers and sisters who will come late. I also humbly request that you turn off these electronic devices, cell phones, and pagers that have a tendency to ring at the most inopportune time and disturb us during our ibadah. And last but not least, I humbly request, as always, that you open your ears, your minds, and your hearts to what I'm about to say. Brothers and sisters, our sermon today will center around the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, collected by Bukhari on the authority of Sahal ibn Sa'd, in which our beloved Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالْخَوَاتِيمِ. He said, actions are judged by their endings. In other words, it's not how you start that matters. It's how you finish. Brothers and sisters, this hadith is teaching us the importance of finishing strong, and that the quality of our deeds can largely be measured by how we complete them. If I can kindly ask one of the brothers that's sitting on that side to close that door. So this hadith, brothers and sisters, is teaching us the importance of finishing strong. And that the quality of our deeds, pay attention to this, the quality of our deeds, every individual deed that we do, the quality of that is largely measured by how we complete it. Now, if we reflect upon Ramadan itself, this month of fasting, in light of this hadith, what would the message to us be? What would the Messenger of Allah be saying to us? He would be saying, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, O Muslim, your Ramadan and the worship you did therein overall is only as good as what you do at the end. So what should we do at the end of the month of fasting to ensure that it will be both accepted and amply rewarded? This is what we want. We didn't spend the days fasting and the nights praying to have it thrown back in our face. We want it to be accepted. So when the Messenger of Allah is telling us this Ramadan is only as good as what you do at the end, our antenna should go up. What should I do at the end, O Messenger of Allah, to make sure that this Ramadan is accepted and the reward for it is ample? Number one, brothers and sisters, al-ijtihad. Self-exertion, extra effort, pushing yourself to the limit spiritually. Aisha radiallahu anha, the mother of the believers, she said, كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يجتهد في العشر الأواخر ما لا يجتهد في غيرها. She said the Messenger of Allah used to exert himself spiritually, ritually, in the last 10 days and nights more so than any other time of the year. And she said رضي الله عنها كان النبي إذا دخل العشر شد مئزره وأحيا ليله وأيقظ أهله. She said the Prophet, when the last 10 nights of Ramadan arrived, he tightened his waist wrapper, which is a way of saying he readied himself for work, spiritual work. It would be like one of us saying he rolled up his sleeves. Means he got down to business. She said he illuminated his night with devotions, meaning he didn't sleep. He spent the entire night in worship. And he awakened his family, encouraging them to do the same. He didn't let his wives and his children sleep. He went around and he woke them up so that they wouldn't lose out on the opportunity that these nights have to offer. Brothers and sisters, in the last 10 days, we will all be tempted. We're tired. I can see it on your faces, and you probably can see it on my face. We are tired. And we are tempted at this time, we're all tempted to scale back and look ahead to Al-Eid. But we have to remind ourselves right here, right now, in this moment, of the hadith of the Prophet, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالْخَوَاتِيمِ. Actions are judged by their endings. This is not the time to scale back or minimize. This is when we need to do more, not less. Praying more. Remembering Allah more. Seeking Allah's forgiveness more. Reading His words, the Quran, more. Giving charity and being generous more. And I cannot stress the last one enough after what the brother announced. $25,000 down, 800 up. How do you manage that? That is not a winning strategy, and that is not a winning financial strategy. And I'm going to be honest with you, brothers and sisters, I have been all over the country. I've been in several places outside of the country. There are very few places where every night you get dates and water, let alone a meal. Home-cooked meal, catered meal, very good food, fill your belly. Very few places do that. Iftar every night in Ramadan, in most places it's unheard of. Not even dates and water are there for the people who come from London. This is an incredible service that the masjid is providing, and I'm not saying this because I'm on the team. I'm saying it because it's true. This is a service the community is providing. It's our community. We should have a hand in that. We should have a hand in that. Number two, what should we do to end Ramadan on a good note? Make sure our Ramadan is accepted, amply rewarded. Zakat al-Fitr. The end of Ramadan, brothers and sisters, means that Zakat al-Fitr is due. We're human. We make mistakes. And some of those mistakes, brothers and sisters, render our fast effective. And you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about those arguments with one's wife and some of the things that we say that we shouldn't say. I'm talking about some of those things that we watched on TV that we shouldn't be watching outside of Ramadan, let alone in Ramadan. We did those things. We know who we are. We do things in Ramadan that render our fast effective. Zakat al-Fitr can alleviate or minimize those deficiencies and safeguard the reward we hope to receive for it. That's what Zakat al-Fitr does. You make mistakes and Allah gives you a way to clean up those mistakes and make it as if you didn't make a mistake at all. That's what Zakat al-Fitr does for us. Ibn Abbas was reported to have said, فرض رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم زكاة الفطر طهرة للصائم وطعمة للمساكين فمن أداها قبل الصلاة فهي زكاة مقبولة ومن أداها بعد الصلاة فهي صدقة من الصدقات. He said the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم obligated Zakat al-Fitr as a purification for the fasting person from waywardness and indecency, and as a means to provide food for the needy. Whoever pays it before the prayer, it will be accepted as such. And whoever pays it after the prayer, then it will be deemed an ordinary charity. It will not be accepted on the same level, on the same plane, as if he paid it a few minutes before or even earlier, preferably, than that. Now just think about the wording of this statement of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma. One would imagine when you hear the words from a Sahabi like this, telling you what the Prophet said, saying words like farada, the Messenger of Allah obligated, didn't give us the option, he required it of us. Saying tuhratan lis-sa'im, a purification for the fasting person, a purification for the mistakes we made. Tu'matan lil-masakin, a means to provide for the needy, our needy brothers and sisters who are less fortunate than ourselves. And when we are told that after a certain time it no longer serves the intended purpose, you would think that that would inspire us to be attentive to this means of tuhra, of purification, and hasten to pay this zakat sooner rather than later, especially considering that the Prophet said, innamal a'malu bil khawatim, actions are judged by the last of them. And what's the last thing we do? What's the seal of Ramadan? Zakat al-Fitr. You would think we would be keen to pay it. But every year without fail, at the end of the month, people, rather than pay their Zakat al-Fitr in a very deliberate, careful, conscientious way, what do? They have to be reminded to pay Zakat al-Fitr. As they're about to step into Salat al-Eid. Did you pay your Zakat al-Fitr? Oh, no, I didn't. They have to be reminded. Then when they pay at that time, they're going to pay in cash. You can't eat cash. And the Prophet legislates Zakat al-Fitr tu'matan, as a way of feeding the needy. You can't eat cash. That cash is going to have to be used to purchase something. Time is lost. Somebody's going to have to voluntarily do that. Do the work for that person. And they do it just before the Eid prayer, and sometimes they do it afterwards. They don't remember until what? Until after. Just not conscientious, not deliberate, not attentive. Now the question we have to ask ourselves, brothers, is this is important. This is important because the Prophet said in the hadith, he said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَنْظُرُ إِلَىٰ أَجْسَادِكُمْ وَلَا إِلَىٰ أَمْوَالِكُمْ وَلَكِنْ يَنْظُرُ إِلَىٰ قُلُوبِكُمْ وَأَعْمَالِكُمْ. He said, listen to this, he said, Allah does not look at, doesn't consider your outward appearances. Doesn't care how much money you make. But rather, He scans your hearts and examines your deeds. What do you do? That says more than what you show. Anybody can dress themselves up and make themselves appear pious. Your deeds are going to tell if you're really pious. Your intention and your attentiveness is going to tell if you're really pious. Now ask yourself, coming back Coming full circle, what message does that last minute flinging of some cash into a box, what message does that send to our Creator, to our God? Does it say, oh Allah, I care? Oh Allah, your acceptance is important to me. I want the reward. I'm afraid of missing out. Does it say that? Or does it say, I don't care? I'm only doing this out of obligation. Only because I have to. Only to save face because somebody called me on it as I was walking into the musalla. Not because I want to. Allah knows what's in the heart, and that's what He's paying attention to. He sees our deeds, the last minute, I couldn't care less, flinging of cash. That's what Allah is looking at. What does it say? And is that the way we should want to seal our Ramadan? هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد. الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So how should we end our Ramadan to make sure that we get ample reward and that it's accepted from us? Salat al-Eid. We should be present and offer Salat al-Eid. Brothers and sisters, every Muslim who is able to attend the Eid prayer should do so. And no Muslim should miss it without a valid excuse. Atiyya radiyallahu anha, she narrated, she said, Umirna an nukhrij al-huyad yawm al-Eidaini wa dhawat al-khudur يشهدنا جماعة المسلمين ودعوتهم ويعتزل الحيض عن مصلاهم. فقالت امرأة من القوم يا رسول الله إن إحدانا ليس لها جلباب. فقال صلى الله عليه وسلم لتلبسها صاحبتها من جلبابها. He said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, she said, radiyallahu anha, we were commanded on the two Eids to bring the menstruating women and those primed for marriage to attend the gathering of the Muslims and their prayer. Because of their condition, the menstruating women were told to come, but not to join the prayer. A woman said, seeking to know if she should be excused or could be excused, because the Prophet was telling them, the women, let alone the men, he was telling them, you all have to come. No excuses. Be there. So one woman said, well, maybe I have an excuse that he hasn't thought of, he hasn't considered. So she said, oh, Messenger of Allah, what if one of us does not possess an outer garment, something to cover her zina? He replied, let one of her friends loan her one of hers. Don't even use this as an excuse. Find someone who will loan you a jilbab and show up. Now the scholars of Islam have pondered this hadith. So they're asking me to ask you all to move forward and sit closer together because we are out of space. We are out of space. So if you guys could kindly move forward and make space. And inshallah, I'm going to be wrapping up. I'm going to start charging Omar for taking time from the sermon. He has to do his announcement before the time to start. I'm sorry. So the scholars of Islam, brothers and sisters, they have looked at this hadith and they said, think about it. If menstruating women without proper attire, and young girls, despite all of them having very valid excuses, menstruating women are not going to pray. Despite having valid excuses, the Prophet didn't excuse them, he required them to show up. Then certainly those who have no excuse must attend. Now, brothers and sisters, when we attend the prayer, inshallah, we'll all attend it unless we have a valid excuse. When we attend, we should be attentive to three things. Number one, at-takbir. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want the Muslims to do at the end of Ramadan? لِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. To proclaim His greatness for having guided us to the ritual of fasting and all of its blessings, and to be thankful, which means that we should actively nukabbirullah, actively make the takbir. This is important because year after year, you just see people coming to the Eid quiet, as if it's a funeral. They're not happy, they seem sad. This is the day that we glorify Allah because He helped us, enabled us to complete 30 days, 1 month of fasting. We thank Him for guiding us to this deed. Because of it, غُفِرَ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِن ذُنُوبِنَا وَمَا تَأَخَّرَ. Our past and previous sins will be forgiven. We thank Allah for that by magnifying Him, by declaring His greatness, by making it takbir, and this goes for adult males, females, and our children. We need to teach our families why this takbir is important and how to make the takbir. And encourage them on the drive to the musalla to fill the car with Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, wa lillahi alhamd. The car shouldn't be quiet like there's a funeral. We shouldn't have NPR on. We should be making the takbir, glorifying Allah for 30 days of fasting. We did it. Number two, listening to the sermon and not preventing others from listening. Some people will come and they'll need to go to work. They'll need to leave, and they can leave. But if they leave, they should leave quietly. They shouldn't weave their way through the masses and stop at every other person. Hey, how you doing? Assalamu alaikum, taqabbalallahu minna wa mink. And when they're doing that, they're disturbing the imam and disturbing others who want to listen to the khutbah. This is very important. Don't be selfish. I've got to go. I've got things to do. But on my way up, I'm going to keep other people from listening. Some people who the only connection they have with Islam is on the day of Eid. People who might hear something on that day and might awaken their heart, inspire them to come back to Allah. But they couldn't hear it. Why? Because people are making noise. People are talking. People are greeting. We shouldn't do that. Some of the scholars like Malik, they say that khutbah al-Eid is just like khutbah al-Jumu'ah. يجب الانصات. You have to be quiet. As-Saafiy rahimahullah ta'ala kariha tark al-istima' al-khutbah. He didn't like it. He considered it a bad thing not to listen to the khutbah. And At-Tahawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he said this khutbah is important because it's a khutbah lit-ta'leem. It's a khutbah of teaching. And so if you're not going to listen, and you should listen, because it's sunnah to listen, don't prevent others from listening. Number three, we need to make sure, brothers and sisters, that we make Eid about the kids, about the young people, not about the old people. What do old people like to do on Eid? They like to sit and drink and eat and talk. That's what we like to do. That's not what our kids like to do. And Eid should be about the kids. We have to make Eid very festive and joyful for our kids. We have to recognize where we're raising them and what we're up against. This is the country of Christmas and Easter and Thanksgiving and Halloween. This is the land where you don't finish a holiday except at what? Right after there's another holiday. Holidays with decorations and candies and lights and cakes and candles and sparklers and fireworks. We can't come and have an Eid that just has rice and chicken. We've got to do better for our kids, because our kids, the way they think, is that this religion has nothing to offer. This religion is a religion of prayer and no joy, fasting and no joy, and that is not true. And so we have to make it a point to make Eid about the kids. Those of you who are parents, make a plan. Devise a plan. We're going to go somewhere. We're going to do something. We're going to make it a memorable day. We're going to make it a day that 3 years, 4 years from now, they're still talking about that Eid. Last but not least, what should we do to end Ramadan? I've talked too much. Shame on me. I want to close by saying we should end Ramadan by being mindful of what comes after Ramadan. We have to avoid, brothers and sisters, abandoning the deeds of Ramadan until next Ramadan. Shelving piety. Putting on a shelf to collect dust until what? Until the next Ramadan. We have to avoid that. Although we're about to say goodbye, brothers and sisters, to Ramadan, that shouldn't mean that we say goodbye to fasting. Voluntary prayers, reciting the Quran, coming to the mosque daily, night prayers, guarding our tongues and avoiding sins. These are not things that we should only do in Ramadan. We found a way to do these things in Ramadan, means we can find a way to do them outside of Ramadan if we commit ourselves. Brothers and sisters, the God of Ramadan is the God throughout the year. The God of every month of the year. And He expects us to worship Him every day of every month, not just in Ramadan. One of the pious predecessors of Salaf as-Saafiy was asked, أَيُّهُمَا أَفْضَلُ Rajab am Sha'ban? Which is better, Rajab or Sha'ban? Which month should I really exert myself in? That scholar, he said, يا بني كن ربانيا ولا تكن شعبانيا أو رجبيا. He said, "Oh my son, be a man of the Lord, not a man of this month or that month." And this is the same advice, brothers and sisters, as I close, that I would like to give to you. Beware of losing interest in being religious after Ramadan. Beware of losing interest in religion after Ramadan. Beware of turning away from Allah and His obedience and being negligent of your religious duties with no intention of returning to that until Ramadan returns. If you do, know that Allah is rich and has no need for your devotions, which you offer exclusively in the month of Ramadan. Just like you turn away from Allah, Allah may turn away from you. وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ. And don't be like the people who forgot about Allah, so He made them forget their own selves. And in the other verse He said, نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَنَسُوهُ. They forgot about Allah, so He forgot about them. Brothers and sisters, Ibn Rajab, he said, and I'll close with this, من عمل طاعة من الطاعات وفرغ منها فعلامة قبولها أن يصلها بطاعة أخرى وعلامة ردها أن يعقب تلك الطاعة بمعصية وما أحسن الحسنة بعد السيئة تمحوها وأحسن منها الحسنة بعد الحسنة تتلوها وما أقبح السيئة بعد السيئة تمحقها وتعفوها وذنب واحد بعد التوبة أقبح من 70 ذنبا قبلها. He said, rahimahullah ta'ala, whoever does an act of obedience, once completed, the sign of its acceptance is that he follows it with another good deed. Follows Ramadan, for example, be sittan min Shawwal, with 6 days from Shawwal. Follows Ramadan by fasting every month, 3 days out of the month, Ayyam al-Bid. Follows Ramadan by making his habit to fast every Monday and Thursday. Follows the month of fasting with what? With more fasting. Follows it with a good deed. The sign that has been rejected is that he follows that act of obedience with a sin. How excellent is the good deed after a sin which erases it, and even better than that is one good deed followed by another and another. How repulsive and repugnant is one sin followed by another, the former paling in comparison to the latter, and a single sin after repentance is more repulsive than 70 sins before it. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين وأذل الشرك والمشركين ودمر أعداءك أعداء الملة والدين وانصر عبادك الموحدين يا رب العالمين. اللهم من أرادنا أو أراد ديننا أو إخوان المسلمين في أي مكان بسوء فأشغله في نفسه واجعل كيده في نحره واجعل تدبيره تدميرا عليه يا قوي يا عزيز. اللهم اشف مرضانا ومرضى المسلمين. اللهم اشف مرضانا ومرضى المسلمين. اللهم اشف مرضانا ومرضى المسلمين. اللهم تقبل منا صيامنا وقيامنا وكل أعمالنا الصالحة في هذا الشهر المبارك. اللهم تقبل منا. اللهم تقبل منا. اللهم تقبل منا. آمين آمين يا رب العالمين. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. وقوموا إلى صلاتكم.